Hello, everyone. Miss Peachy again from your WCA Biology A class. And so here we are again, still in Unit 5. It's a very long unit. Unit 5, Lesson 11, Heat and Cellular Respiration. And this is a short lesson. I'm sure that's appreciated and not super tricky to understand. Just kind of looking at heat as a form of energy. We've been talking about ATP, we've been talking about energy, so heat, another form of energy as well. And heat we oftentimes think of as kind of a waste product when it comes to energy. Because whenever you transform energy from one form to another, generally you lose some of that energy transformation is lost as heat. Think of, for example, if I'm taking and I'm sliding down a slide. At the top of the slide, I have more potential energy. So I'm kind of transforming that potential energy to kinetic energy of motion. But there's also friction between myself and the slide, which generates heat. And that heat isn't really able to be used to do any kind of work. So we consider it to be kind of a waste energy in a way. It's not being transformed into something that's useful. However, as a living thing, we do need heat. We need to stay warm to stay alive, right? So the heat that is generated in some of these energy transfers can be used to help us kind of stay warm as organisms. So energy from ATP is used for the contraction of muscles during any movement. And it's also used to power metabolic reactions, which are chemical reactions that allow organisms to survive, which include cellular respiration. That's a type of metabolic reaction, and to shuttle energy to other parts of the body that require more energy. So when we're looking at organisms, specifically animals, there are two kind of main groups of animals. I mean, you can divide up animals in multiple different ways, but one way to think of them is ectotherms versus endotherms. An ectotherm, which you might have been grown up learning as a cold-blooded animal, right? The more specific or more scientific term is ectotherm. These include invertebrates, fishes, reptiles, and amphibians. They have low metabolic activity. So they're having less of that cellular respiration happening because they rely on the external environment to regulate their body temperature rather than their own ability to produce heat. So another term here, thermogenesis. Thermogenesis is the ability of our own bodies to generate heat. We're generating our own heat. And cold-blooded or ectothermic animals, they don't have the ability to do that as much. They still do, but they're not really able to control their body temperatures, so they rely upon the external environment to do that. They also rely upon the structure of their body a little bit as well. Um, so their body themselves, the size of the body can help regulate heat as well. So more importantly, they control their body temperature by controlling their location, changing where they are. For example, they might lie in the sun to warm up in the cool morning, but then stay burrowed underground on a very hot day to stay cool. Other animals like us, we are endotherms. Endotherms, you also might hear it called homeotherms because we maintain a constant body temperature, but endo specifically meaning that from the inside we are regulating our body temperatures. We have high levels of thermogenesis, which means we have a higher metabolic function, which also means we have higher energy requirements. So think about that way. These are also known as warm-blooded animals. Um, Endotherms have the ability to regulate their body temperature. So they produce a lot of heat because of a lot of thermogenesis, but if it's too hot, we have mechanisms in place to help us cool down, like sweating or panting or things like that. And if it's too cold, we can shiver or do other things to help us to warm up. We also regulate our body temperature by other types of body features like feathers and fur and stuff like that. So all of these things do require extra ATP to make happen. So we are a very high energy requirement of our bodies. The other thing this talks about is how the size of the animal actually plays a role as well. And I'm going to get to that slide here. So here we are on slide 8. So as animals such as bears and bobcats often live where there isn't much food during the long winter months. Since we need a lot of energy to be able to do thermogenesis, when there's not a lot of food, there isn't a lot of energy available, so these endotherms will hibernate in the winter months in many parts of the world. It reduces their metabolic functions and enables them to live with less energy requirements. So that's why hibernation actually takes place. Additionally, bears have very thick fur to insulate their body and have a low surface area to volume ratio. And this is something that's being talked about. So a big animal will have a lower surface area to volume ratio, meaning that the surface area is just the areas of your body that's actually on the surface, right? And when you're big, you have a lot of exposed surface, but you have a lot of volume as well. When you're little, like my little mouse here, this isn't a real mouse, but you have a lot of exposed surface, but a very small volume. So the ratio of surface area to volume is much higher. When you have a higher surface area to volume ratio, you lose heat faster, right? So little guys, little mice and little critters tend to lose their heat faster and have a harder time maintaining that internal body temperature. This is also why children and babies are more susceptible to like hypothermia than a full-grown adult would be because they have a higher surface area to volume ratio. Let's see, I think that's pretty much the gist of this lesson. So it's just talking a little bit about heat and how it's generated from metabolic processes like cellular respiration and how that heat is used by endotherms like us. Ectotherms are different because they rely on the external environment to regulate their temperature. And larger animals have a lower surface area to volume ratio so they can maintain their body temperature better than little guys. So that's it, everyone. If you have any additional questions, you know how to reach me. Have a great day.